Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Just gonna make sure here that the stream is up before we get rolling. 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another Project Maydie report. I'm loving what I'm seeing, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who haven't seen, we are seeing grounded flights by airlines. That's right, people are fighting back. Pilots, air traffic controllers, nurses, doctors, policemen, firemen, people that make America churn, make America better, make America safer. The people that were fighting for us during the height of this pandemic have been getting laid off left and right. Lawsuits coming all across the United States of America during this draconian edict known as King Biden. Let's take a look. For those of you who haven't seen, Southwest cancels 100 more flights, denies sick out. They're denying the sick out, ladies and gentlemen. They just simply canceled hundreds of flights just because you know what their source is, ladies and gentlemen? Trust us. Trust us. That is their source. Let's take a look. This is out of Dallas. Southwest Airlines canceled several hundred more flights Monday following a weekend of major disruptions that it blamed on bad weather and air traffic controller issues. Both the company and its pilots union denied reports of a sick out to protest mandatory COVID-19 vacuums. I think you know what I'm talking about here. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are seeing here is the Great Awakening. The do not comply mantra. You cannot comply your way out of tyranny. You cannot comply your way back to normal. The only way that you will ever get any semblance of normality back here in the United States of America is if you just say no. You may see yourself as just a small domino. You may see yourself as simply inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. But I'm here to tell you that the same movements that led to the civil rights, when they first started going, when they first started churning, it meant people died. It meant people were attacked and assaulted. It meant people were put behind bars. Ultimately, it's going to lead to massive protests, which is why I created Project Maydie. When I see stuff like this, it's a nice little white pill among all of the black pills that have been raining down on us. These edicts from our emperor, our king, hail, Joe Biden, and his wonderful way of governance. By superseding our votes and superseding our representatives in order to decree edicts. For the mighty, holy King Biden knows best for you and your body. In fact, it couldn't possibly have anything to do with all of the lawsuits. No. These lawsuits that are mounting on religious grounds have the greatest groundswell in terms of actually being approved. And the way I can talk about that is because the Obama admin actually fought for nurses' rights when they were told they were going to need the regular flu vaccine in order to continue to work at hospitals. And every single time a religious accommodation was put to the court, they won. They won every single time. Which is why you see what's going on in Tennessee right now. For those of you who don't follow Robert Barnes, he recently just put out a lawsuit against Tyson Foods, one of the largest chicken, beef, meat manufacturers in all of the United States. Quite frankly, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm liking that people are actually fighting back, that people are willing to lose something. You can't get anything for nothing. It doesn't exist. You have to sacrifice something. So if you are somebody who is on the doorstep of a mandate and you know it's coming down the line, start creating your emergency savings, your emergency plan, and start doing it right now. Stop waiting. What happened to the French when the Germans marched across the Rhine? They were caught off guard. And that's why they had to flee their own country. Because they were not prepared. They were not prepared for the blitzkrieg. Now, hopefully it doesn't reach that point. Hopefully we don't reach a point in the United States of America where we have federal agents knocking in doors in order to put in some nice little juice. But at this point, after seeing what's happened all across the world, especially in Western countries, or philosophically Western countries such as Australia and New Zealand, and the way that they baton and attack 70-year-old women and have completely stopped any ability to protest the government in the names of public safety, very similar to the hymns of Hitler, we are seeing right now is these small little embers that will ultimately lead to a great fire if every single person is willing to sacrifice. So again, if at this point we are nearly 2 years into this thing, if you haven't created your exit plan from your particular profession, you need to start now. You need to start thinking about what you need to do to either A, start your own business, B, phone a friend, find a company that has less than 100 employees, or C, lawsuit. There are plenty of information around there. If you go to Gab right now, you can look out for religious exemptions. As far as I know, anyone that has actually printed out this religious exemption and put it on the table of their employer, every single one of them have been approved. I've yet to hear a single version of people that have been denied on their religious exemption when they use this particular form. I'll make sure to link it down in the description below if you're having this type of problem, because we have to stick together in this. This is not going to be easy for anyone. A medical apartheid, medical tyranny, whatever it is you want to call it. What we're going through right now in America ultimately is going to be defined by our actions. It's not going to be defined by us going on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, Parler, etc. Of course, that helps, being able to broaden the message. But you see what's going on in terms of the social media, right? These major players, these multinational corporations working in tandem with the government in order to, what's it called? Disinformation, right? In order to squelch disinformation or information they don't like, which would be a much better definition for what it is they're trying to do. Some of the things that I see right now in terms of America and why we're dealing with this type of this hive mind thinking, right? Where people are simply accepting what is being fed to them on the television. Why are we seeing this? Where is the base root? Because propaganda in and of itself can be very, very powerful. But what are the underlying conditions that are allowing them to be pulled into this tornado of disinfo? Let's take a look. For those of you who don't know, IQs across the world are dropping, right? We have the internet. We have the largest amount of information ever seen. Every book, every movie, every documentary, every blueprint, anything that you would ever want to learn, if you seek, you shall find. Knock and the door shall open for you. And that's the internet. And yet here we have IQs falling. When IQs fall, critical thinking goes out the door. And what we end up seeing is that people are easily maligned and they're easily led. Which is why you probably see right now that across all the social strata, the people that decide not to get the vacuum, the people that don't get the vacuum, if you know what I'm saying, are actually PhDs and higher. And also very, high school dropouts, right? And then there's somewhere in the middle, right? And it's kind of odd. You have, ideally, of course, PhDs aren't all, super geniuses, but it's very tedious. It's very, hard work in order to focus, that much. And yet they are not agreeing to take up the shot. And the same thing goes with people that have dropped out of education altogether. Another thing that we see, of course, is we see a lack of masculinity. We see a lack of strength, a lack of character, a lack of leadership, a lack of ability in order to actually fight back. It wasn't super uncommon back in the day to see bar brawls, right? People fighting in the streets, people fighting for turf, right? And it didn't even necessarily have to be violent. You know, at least in terms of death, right? You know, of course, people would get hurt, people would get injured, but people would just go out in the streets just to fight. Just to fight. Testosterone levels all across America are dropping in droves. For those of you who don't know, a 22-year-old man today has roughly the same equal testosterone to that of a 67-year-old man in the year of 2000. What's driving this? What is driving this drop in testosterone? Of course, it's the obesity epidemic, as well as the food. Factory food. The foods that we're putting in our body, the toxins, the metals, anything that seems to just be approved by the FDA nowadays. You saw what happened with the entire OxyContin debacle. And these are the exact same people that are now pushing this medical procedure on top of us. It's compiling and compounding the effect of what is ultimately a very, very weak populace. We've become too fat, too lazy, and simply too comfortable, and we are not willing to give that up, even if it means that our children will live in tyranny. We can't let that happen. We cannot let this world crash and burn. Our fathers and our forefathers fought and died in legitimate wars. World War II, arguably World War I. And yet here we are on the precipice of our own destruction, our own balkanization, hopefully in the way of a peaceful divorce and not actual civil conflict in the streets. And what's being done? Most people are conceding. Most people are backing down. So if you are not one of those people, you are actually unique. Your defiance and your rebellion is actually quite admirable. And it honestly, it should be viewed with not only compassion, but prestige. Because through the entire 2 years, the propaganda, the gaslighting, and now at this point, being labeled as domestic terrorists. Being a domestic terrorist because you do not agree with race essentialism. Being called a domestic terrorist because you refuse a medical injection. Being called a domestic terrorist because you refuse to take something that you do not trust. It's not about science. It's about control. You saw what happened earlier on in the year when the CDC simply through edict alone, was able to stop landlords from evicting tenants that haven't been paying to actually live in the home that they own. This was the original step for the federal government to begin to accumulate homes, to supersede the market and become a communist-style country. Which is why when the Supreme Court told Joe Biden that no, you cannot do this, what ended up happening? He did it again anyway. And so they were forced to do another retort claiming very explicitly that this was illegal. And only then did he back down. But how long? We are only 7 months into this presidency. How long before the Supreme Court, the law of the land, actually passes down something, passes down a judgment, and the federal government, the executive branch, simply does not listen? There is no enforcement arm of the judicial branch. It doesn't exist. So what's to stop the executive by simply superseding the Supreme Court and doing what they wish, which is what they're doing now with this mandate? And ideally, for those of you who don't know, the weaklings are being rounded up. John, it is what it is, and it's definitely a truth. I'll give you that. What's actually happening right now is the start of the ultimate control that is the federal government. The overbearing, the overreaching that has come into our lives hasn't been seen since probably Abraham Lincoln, or at the very least, FDR or Woodrow Wilson. And what we're seeing here is an attack on the actual American public, a large constituency of the American public. Luckily, Joe Biden's approval rating seems to be hitting into the gutter, slowly drooping from mid-50s down to low 40s. And in the most recent polling from these super hardcore lefty propagandized, sample sizes, they are reaching only 38 percentage points approval. Joe Biden's on his way down. And we are seeing it all across the nation. For those of you who don't know, we have ships off the coast of America right now that are not able to come in because of such a lack of workers. Now, this is just, and I'm throwing it out there, but if Donald Trump was president right now, call me crazy. First of all, I know the vaccine mandates most likely would not even be happening at all. But additionally, beyond that, they're talking about bringing in the National Guard in order to be nurses, in order to cover for all of the nurses that they fired during the middle of a pandemic. If I was a genius, and I'm no genius, but why wouldn't he take the National Guard and help the boat workers so that all of the ships that are sitting off the coast of the United States were actually bringing in the products? You've probably seen it all across America. You go into an electronics store, missing everywhere. Things that require chips, gone. You go to the food store, there's missing products. You go to the gas pump and you're seeing it rise up and up and up. And now even the mainstream media is acknowledging that these prices that were once supposed to be transitory, according to Janet Yellen, these transitory prices, these price increases were simply normal, are now saying that they are here to stay. Nancy Pelosi even making a comment herself that you should start buying your Christmas presents early in October and November because you might not be able to get them by the time December rolls around. And that's what we're looking at here today, guys. Massive shortages, massive product, just simply not showing up. We have ships off of our coast. We have a president that hates its own people, or at least 50% of its constituents. And on top of that, we have the FBI working in tandem with the CIA in order to label American citizens who don't want their children taught race essentialism as domestic terrorists. Welcome to the United States. So, again, and I bring this up every time, Project Maydie will be coming. I'll be doing some videos of some very, very odd things. Let's just say I'll be dressing up as a nice little clown and doing some man on the street type interviews where I go around my own area in nice little Ruby Red, Florida here and get some actual opinions from just regular old people. And we can contrast that to what we're seeing in New York and California, which are doing mandates and draconian edicts that are shutting down a massive majority of their population from simply interacting with everyday life. So, if you want to join this fight, do not comply. If you're one of the few patriots that are willing to fight and stand for this country, I tip my hat to you. Our country is under attack. Some things you can definitely start doing is lifting, eating clean, making sure that you and your family are going to be provided for, create a business, and set yourself on the right path. So if this thing does happen to get much, much worse, which I believe it will before it gets better, at least you will be prepared. Stock up on some food, maybe some beans, stuff like that. And hey, worst case scenario, right? This food lasts 2 or 3 years. Hey, you got some extra cans of beans, right? No big deal. With that said, if you guys enjoy this type of content, go down below, like, subscribe, share. I'll see you guys on the next one. I love you. Peace.